An intellectual carrot, the mind boggles.
You see? You see? You're stupid minds. Stupid! Stupid!
Earth has had Santa Claus long enough. We will bring him to Mars.
I've been afraid a lot of times in my life, but I didn't know the real meaning of fear until I had kissed Becky.
One thing will be clear. It's not for man to interfere in the ways of God.
It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Earth vs. Soup, episode 107. I'm Aaron Pollier.
And I'm Darlene.
And we have a story about this movie that we decided to watch today. We had taken a trip to Decatur, Indiana, and visited a restaurant called Famous Monster Pizza. And it's done up with lots of 1950s, 60s, 30s, 40s monster movie and science fiction stuff. And they have screens playing old movies, and they played two movies, one of which we'd actually done a review for, Earth versus the Spider, and that's the one where they use electricity to kill the spider in the caves. Darlene's like looking up where it was.
Yeah, and then the other one was the one we're doing today.
No, it isn't the one we're doing today.
Oh no, it's the one we're going to be doing
yes,
next.
But the next one was War of the Colossal Beast, and it is the second movie in the Burt I. Gordon series of movies that started with Amazing Colossal Man. And we decided that we need to do those two movies. We haven't done Amazing Colossal Man. We have not done War of the Colossal Beast. And as we sat there in the restaurant, enjoying ourselves quite a bit, Earth versus the Spider?
Spider is 46.
As we sat there in the restaurant, enjoying ourselves quite a bit, we watched the entire Amazing War of the Colossal Beast and made people laugh around us.
I thought most of them were just irritated with us because we were enjoying ourselves. And one of the people I was talking to really hated those movies. And I'm like, why are you coming then?
Why are you coming to this restaurant? Everything is monster and sci-fi movie themed. Really. Anyway, so we decided we were going to watch the first one of these Burt I. Gordon movies, and it's Amazing Colossal Man from 1957. You can find it for free on YouTube. It's not that hard to find. It's an hour and 20 minutes long. It's black and white, and it is
based on Ninth Man, N-T-H.
Nth Man.
By Homer Ian Flint.
Okay.
This double featured with Catgirl.
Okay, which we haven't done, right?
And
we've done Catwoman. The Catwoman, something Catwoman.
And it was budgeted for $848,000.
This was $848,000.
Yes.
In today's money?
No.
$848,000 in 1957 to today's money is something close to $9 million in today's money. So, this is not a $9 million movie. This would be an $800,000 movie in today's money. The quality of this movie is not good. Now, you may have seen this movie before watching MST3K. It has been done as an MST3K. Because it generally is very easy to make fun of for a lot of good reasons. It's not a very competently made movie. It has some interesting ideas in it, but it's done in such a way as to be really, really schlocky. Have you ever seen this before?
Yes.
MST3K?
Possibly.
I'm sure you have, because you've watched most of the MST3K movies with me. Anyway, we should probably start and I also will break up this plot by saying every time the movie does something terrible with science, and it's almost immediate that the movie does something terrible with science. It's 2:45 a.m. as a announcer says, and it's somewhere in the American Southwest because it's a desert and there's jeeps.
And there's a caravan of military transport
Just
vehicles.
like I said, jeeps. And
Well,
they say there will be a
They're
detonation.
bigger than jeeps.
There'll be a detonation of a plutonium bomb, a new type of bomb. Okay, so we need to immediately pause and go, okay, wait a second. Throughout this film,
This is what
1957.
Aaron asked me. When was their first test?
No,
of this?
I was asking you rhetorically because I knew the answer to it, but I wanted to see if you did. Right. All the way through this movie, they constantly refer to the bomb that is detonated to cause all the problems is a plutonium bomb, and it is the first of its kind. And I'm like, well, when was the first plutonium bomb used? Well, used in war was Nagasaki, so 1945, but it wasn't the first plutonium bomb. The first plutonium bomb was actually the Trinity explosion. Literally the first one that they ever blew up was a plutonium bomb. So as they talk crap through this entire movie, it's clear that no one did their research, because I'm pretty sure that it was very open that the Trinity detonation and Nagasaki was a plutonium bomb, because Hiroshima was that was the uranium gun, U-235 gun explosive. Anyway, it is terrible. They constantly do that, and I just thought I'd tell you right now in case you did not know this little piece of nuclear bomb history. There are soldiers being put in an area very close to the bomb to simulate exposure during combat conditions. Okay, again, pause. This is something that was actually done. This seems insane, but it was done. And how it is shown in this movie is actually one of the safer times they did this. They basically put a whole bunch of soldiers in a trench and put them somewhat close to a nuclear detonation
with goggles
to protect their eyes, but it's there for them to like jump out of the trenches and like sprint across a field, because how they want to try to see how soldiers react to it is the fact of, even after the detonation, there's all this wind, there's all this thermal heat, there's all this noise, this roaring noise, and it can be disorienting. So testing how soldiers react under these kinds of conditions actually does make some sort of sense in the 1950s logic of the U.S. Army / Navy / Air Force. As I said, this is one of the safer times they've done it, comparatively speaking, because in history you have the Castle Bravo test, where they kept people far too close and the bomb was far more powerful than they initially expected. And lots of people were accidentally exposed to incredible amounts of radiation during these tests. So it's a new type of bomb. They're testing these soldiers. They're in a trench. And as they count down, it does not detonate at the 0 moment. And they're like, hold on, don't do anything. It has been triggered. You should not leave your trenches. We will figure out what's going on.
And a small civilian aircraft crash lands.
It doesn't really crash land. That's not right, Darlene. It does not crash land. It sets down on its wheels. They say it crash lands, but the model they shows it nicely setting down in the desert. And it doesn't respond to any radio hails, right? And so they first think maybe this guy's radio's out, maybe he's in distress. Somehow he got through the jet patrols that would have been all over the area, the closed airspace. So that means there's lots of pilots that just got court-martialed and tossed out of the military for letting a civilian aircraft through. Anyway, the plane lands nicely on the ground. Okay, it had engine trouble. They do know that. And then Colonel Glenn Manning, our hero of the movie, decides, I gotta go get that guy out of the plane.
Runs off without his goggles.
He takes off his goggles, runs off, and then is seemingly right next to the bomb tower because he kind of like looks up at it.
I have no idea.
And the bomb detonates. There's this huge flash. His clothes are torn from his body. There's burns all over him. And That's it. Okay, so we have that. It strips him, it burns him. At the hospital, the doctors are trying to save his life. We meet his fiancee named Carol Forrest. And just like when you say, my retirement is in 2 days, when you're a cop in a movie and you say, I retire in 2 days, what happens to the cop? They get killed because they're about to retire. So what does Carol say? Carol says, we were supposed to be married tonight in Las Vegas. And I'm like, well, this doesn't seem very like a good idea for you to be here, Carol. You're screwed. And Glenn's screwed too. If you have not seen this movie, you'd probably think, yep, all right. But anyway, they're trying to save him. His fiancee Carol is there. There's a doctor that basically tells her that they have film footage of him being blown up, because there were protected cameras all over the place. Again, that makes sense. There were protected cameras during these tests to film like the buildings exploding or animals out in the open. Some of the footage
used the stock footage of those nuclear
bomb tests. Yeah, absolutely. There is actually appropriate stock footage being used in this movie for a nuclear bomb test. And they thankfully did not show the more horrific ones of the animals, things like that, because those are kind of horrific. But he seems pretty happy that they have footage of him burning to death, basically. Because at this point they think, boy, he's going to die. She says they were going to get married that night in Las Vegas. Doctors think he'll die of an infection or shock by morning because he has
no skin.
He has no skin, and most of the tissue in his body is dead or dying.
All with third-degree burns all over most of his body.
I mean, he was right next to a nuclear explosion.
That means it should have been tore apart.
Well, yeah, he was close enough. The way he looked up at that tower, he should have been within the plasma ball.
The science behind this is...
And again, I know far too much about nuclear weapons because of growing up in the Cold War and being scared of them. So some of the stuff is just clearly silly. The next morning, a nurse freaks out. For some reason, like she's checking his bandages to check to see if he's still somehow alive. She freaks out. The doctors come running in. They cut the bandages off him. He is perfectly fine. He looks happy and healthy.
And no scars.
No scars, new skin, perfectly healthy. And his fiancée comes in to see him, and she's like, he'll be better. He's going to be better. I'm like, oh, honey, you're not an idiot. You can't be an idiot. He might look okay, but let's be honest, the man was exposed to incredible amounts of radiation. And even like the first responders in Chernobyl that were there's a point at which in their long drawn out deaths that you do seem to recover, because at this point your body systems are so far gone that you're not having like the sickness reactions anymore. And there's like a few hours where basically you seem like you're going to be okay. And I was like...
Then you start melting.
And then basically you start screaming until you're dead. But, hey, look, Glenn has all the new skin he ever wants. Carol, you can have your man. That's what she thinks. Now, the scientists involved with the creation of this bomb have no idea how Glenn survived. This is where they show the stock footage. They're like, maybe there's some things just beyond our knowledge. That's what a scientist says, and I want to reach through the television screen and slap him silly when he says that. It just, no. You might not know what happened, but that doesn't mean that there's something beyond what you can understand. And in fact, guess what? Later on, scientists figure out exactly why this is happening. So it's clearly not beyond our ability to understand. So he disappears from the hospital when his fiancée comes looking for him again, because she wants to visit him. Of course, that makes sense, right? He's not there. The nurse doesn't know what's happening, and thus begins the epic adventure of Carol Forrest in her ability to crack through top secret information, weasel her way onto top secret facilities, and entirely avoid
Okay,
well-trained
so
security
many
guards.
So many people should have been
Court-martialed for this?
court-martialed for this. The nurse gets called.
She's a military nurse.
She's a military nurse, and Carol picks up the clipboard that she just left
That
there.
has classified information all over it. There's
So she discovers that the location is Summit, Nevada.
Summit, Nevada. Yeah, it's Area 51. They're going to go out to Area 51.
And
I don't care.
Carol Force goes there in her car.
Yep.
With it's a convertible too.
So she's driving around the desert in a convertible. Okay, I'm okay with that. And Darlene, I'm actually okay with her driving out to the base.
Okay.
Because how many times have we driven out to Area 51?
We've never actually went onto it.
We've never went onto it, but we can go right to the guardhouse.
We know not to even blink.
No, you cannot cross that line. And theoretically, Carol didn't cross that line.
She went to the gate.
She went to the gate.
The gate guard calls up, and this is where I was like, okay, yeah, I could see her going in and somebody meeting her, but nobody meets her.
Right.
Then the guard, then the person there says she needs to leave the base.
Okay.
Well, at that part, you would have had an escort out.
There are multiple steps where this fails here, and we're going to get pendactic for a second. When she comes to the gate, guard says, "Wait here, I'm going to make a call." Right? He could have taken her in to the guard shack or whatever. Right? Like, hey, sit down here. I don't want you in your car to go over this line because this is a top secret facility. Because it is a top secret facility, right? So he gets on the phone and says, "All right, somebody will be here to see you." So the military, if you're at all somewhat competent, you would send somebody out to see her.
When I had to have somebody come into the base,
Yep.
I had to go down to there. Sometimes it was walking because I didn't have a vehicle.
Yep.
Sign them in.
Yes.
And I was responsible for them.
Okay. But remember, this is a top secret facility.
And those weren't top secret places.
Yeah. And remember the time that we tried to visit Nellis Air Force Base? We thought we could get in with your ID that you had at the time.
I can't.
And you can't. So what did they do? Did they just send us to go in and get the proper ID?
No.
Or no, they said, turn your butt around, you're gone. And we're like, yes, sir. That was it. There's no arguing. So instead, the guard says, go on through, go to our top secret facility. Somebody will talk to you inside the top secret building on our top secret base.
And she does get somebody to talk to him, and he says she needs to leave.
Yes.
You would have somebody escort.
They bring her in just to tell her she needs to leave. So she's already seen this top secret facility, knows that there's shenanigans going on here, right? He tells her that she needs to leave, and then walks away expecting her to leave. What does she do?
She sneaks to another corridor.
She starts snooping around because there's nobody watching her in this top secret base. And
you'd have tons of cameras.
And then I'm not going to blame the scientists for talking because this should be a secure facility. They're just talking to each other, and she overhears them talking about like a medical case. And it's our scientists, and it's clearly the people that she's kind of come out here to see. So she finds out which direction they're going. She follows them, and then she runs into a room
that has
giant Glenn Manning laying down on a mat, but he is huge.
He's supposed to be what, 16 foot at this time?
Let me look at my notes. Hold on. Glenn is 18 feet tall now and is growing 8 to 10 feet a day. Now, Carol has already seen far too much. This is a top secret facility. There is a strange biological accident that is happening, and it has to do with our nuclear security. Carol is then shot. I'm kidding. Carol's now involved in the freaking research because Carol is clearly a nuclear physicist and or biologist. No. Their actual reasoning is that since she was the fiancé, that having her around might make Glenn stable mentally.
But then they go backwards on that later on.
They do. And they're like, okay. I guess I could see that. But here, the thing is that her first interaction with him is not stable at all. He's clearly really upset. He's making like gallows humor. Glenn is very upset about the fact that he can't be married to her, that he's become a monster, and he becomes way more self-conscious about what's happening to him. Because his fiancée, the woman that he loved, that we even have a flashback to them having a cookout with.
Yeah.
Well, we learned there's 2 flashbacks that Glenn has, and I guess they're dreams, where he dreams about having this beautiful cookout with Carol out in the desert, and it's the day that he volunteered to go to Korea.
Re-enlist into Korea.
Well, he was a reservist, right? And he says, I was going to get called up anyway, and I figured I'm going to just volunteer, go right there, right now, reactivate, and be done with it. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Good for him. He's being, supporting his country.
He would have came back in 54. And this is 57. So
he's been back for a while, but he hasn't been married. I guess he just hasn't found the opportunity to marry her. But the second flashback is in Korea, and we get some decent Korea stock footage, some decent stuff.
And then the shooting of his friend.
Well, yeah, what happens is that North Korean soldiers attack him. They kill his friend, and Glenn like shoots 2 of them in the face. Like, it's, wow, dude. I think Glenn needs to talk to somebody.
Maybe
about
that's what it
this.
was 4 years of
4 years of therapy. I don't know. It's a little upsetting because like he shoots the dude in the face, at least one of them in the face, because the guy like screams and holds his face and falls over dead, like blood everywhere. I'm like, ooh.
The next scene
ooh.
I got to laugh about.
Okay, what's the next scene?
The next scene is he's like 22 feet tall.
Yep, 22 feet tall and bald. Yep.
And when he wakes up, the mattress is a regular mattress, one of the military regular freaking mattresses.
They just strapped a whole bunch.
And
of
they
them
put
together.
small furniture in front of him.
Well, yeah, they did.
And this tiny little telephone that doesn't match with the size of the chair.
The props don't really make a lot of sense in this movie.
Yeah, they're...
Carol's like trying to calm him down, and he's like, what sin can a man commit to suffer like this?
Oh, and the poor guy must have had to shave everything.
He was a hairless man, except for his eyebrows. He had eyebrows. He did. And eyelashes.
Because
but otherwise he was bald.
Yeah, there was not even hair on his legs.
Well, I mean,
or his arms.
Yeah. So we end up getting a scene where there's a private meat delivery guy that comes out there with 25 sides of beef, and he's like, who's gonna eat all of this out here?
The hospital's been closed since the war.
But it hasn't been. I mean, they mentioned that it's been closed since the war, but it's also an active top secret facility. So there's more here than a hospital. Let's put it that way. There has to be. It doesn't make sense otherwise.
And the MP breaks protocol and tells them that we have
a giant
that's 30 foot tall.
And the meat delivery guy is like, yeah, right, big deal. And then he's like, fine, and he leaves, right? Yeah, so the MP technically can get court-martialed for breaking operational security. There's a lot of people in this movie that can get court-martialed.
And the next scene, one of the scenes you have, Glenn and Carol go out. Where?
No. What the next thing that happens is that we get the Las Vegas television reporter. And here's the thing. Another bit of operational security has completely been breached. There's a Las Vegas television reporter who wonders what happened to Glenn Manning. Okay. Supposedly, everyone out in like the public knows that Glenn Manning somehow survived a direct atomic blast. Who let that out? Who knows? Okay. Obviously, above ground atomic testing could not be hidden, and it was a pastime to go out to Las Vegas and stand on top of the casinos and watch the mushroom clouds rise from the test ranges. It's why the Stardust Hotel had its sign looking the way it did, because it was supposed to resemble a mushroom cloud. Anyway, the point is, everyone would know that there was an atom bomb test. Why would the military let out that a man survived it, being directly like in the blast of it, the like the plasma ball of it? There is no way that would have gotten out. So again, somebody broke operational security, and now the public is wondering what the hell happened to him. And they know that it is a plutonium bomb, which is supposed to be the first plutonium bomb ever tested, which also should have been secret. And I don't know. I don't know. Like, there's so much stuff that's baffling about how information gets passed around in this movie. But I think you're talking about now that we have Glenn sitting on a hill with Carol and her car.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
he claims to be, when he was going through school, he was supposed to be a person to reach the top.
Yeah. I'm most likely to reach the top. Yeah, he's kind of
and don't want to go. I don't want to go anymore. And he gets in an argument that he just gets angry. She doesn't even arguing with him.
It makes sense why he's getting angry. It's because he's actually like losing his mind. And we'll get to why he is. And this is like the one part of the movie that has even worse science and kind of makes his behavior make sense. In a way, they're trying to explain why he's acting like a creep. Because you'd think that he would be upset about what's happening to him. That's fine, but he's acting really nutty. This is also a scene where some of the chroma key starts looking really bad, and this entire movie ends up having like really bad chroma key where parts of Glenn Manning just kind of blend out into the background. Or
the fact
he's
that they're
like transparent, not translucent, I should say. That's the more accurate.
He's very light colored compared to the.
You can see the background kind of through him. It's terrible. Trying to find where I am now. Carol drives back. Oh, Carol tells the doctor. The doctor comes out looking for Glenn, and tells Carol to drive back to the lab. But here is where Carol says he has no relatives, that she's the only person that he has in his life. Now, that is important based on the next movie, because I will say in the next movie, we meet Glenn's sister, correct?
Yes.
And they're not estranged, are they?
No. And we have the next continuity thing is the guy delivers a big, huge turkey to him.
No, it's not a turkey. It's not a turkey. I was actually trying to figure out what the hell it was.
It wasn't pig or that.
No, it had no bones. It was like a ball of meat.
It was in his hands was a big turkey.
It looked like a turkey that he was eating when he picked it up, right? When it was supposed to be big, right? But what was delivered, it looked just like a ball of meat. And there's no bones when what he's eating with.
Yeah, I understand that part. I understand.
It's not a side of beef.
What I'm talking about is when the guy actually walks in with the platter, it's a turkey on that platter.
Yeah, it didn't look like a turkey to me. I mean, that's a pedantic thing to kind of start arguing about. But
it's supposed to be a whole thing of beef or something.
You know, it looked like it was like maybe a big rolled ham or something, because it looked like it had pineapples on it or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. He starts eating this thing. And he sees a newspaper headline that says "Man lives through plutonium blast." Again, operational security is complete nonsense.
And he has a barrel for a water jug.
And he's like, ha, ha, ha. He starts laughing and coughing because, as we learn later on, there's a reason. And he's like, they call this living. Ha, ha, ha. And I wrote down, Glenn is clearly not mentally well, nor is he well chroma keyed, because this is where like half his head disappears sometimes. And it's the reason is that his head is shaved, right? He's completely bald. And the chroma key color of whatever they were matting against was clearly shining on his head a little bit, so it was having some color bleed over. So like parts of him would just disappear if he was sitting at a specific angle. So here is where we learn why Glenn is acting like a creep and crazy. All of Glenn's organs are growing at the same rate except for his heart. Okay. At that stop, okay, cool. There's something weird about the heart that's not making it grow properly. Okay. And since his heart isn't growing, it means that his body is reacting really bad. It's not able to pump blood around as well. It's struggling to pump blood to his brain. So guess what? He's getting like oxygen deprivation to his brain. And he says, if this continues, the heart is growing just much slower than the rest of him. That if this continues, he'll go crazy and either die from like brain death, or his heart will just explode as it continues to struggle to work. And then and this is where I was like, oh, okay, I got to pause the movie and write this crap down. This is because the heart is, according to our medical doctor, is effectively like a single cell, where all the other organs of the body operate as though they were multiple cells. And Darlene's like holding her head right now, and it's, no, it's not. You're not a medical doctor, are you? You got your degree out of like Cracker Jack box.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Cracker Jack box. Then there's the 3 miles up oxygen.
Oh yeah, he starts joking about how, well, at the very least, I'll have hard time breathing when I get to be 3 miles tall and the oxygen starts dropping out. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's a good round number to use. It's not exactly that, but that's a good enough number. Glenn is also complaining about sharp pains in his chest. And the scientist does think that he will die in the next couple days. There's like, his body won't continue to, he won't get much bigger. Okay. So if he's 18 feet tall, right?
No,
and
he's 20 now.
Well, okay. I'm saying
he's
when
30 now.
When he was 18 feet tall, they said he was growing 8 to 10 feet a day. All right. So that is that day. So then like we go to the 30-foot giant. So it's been a couple days then. And all of this stuff happens during the same day. So he's 30 feet tall. If he's going to die in the next couple days, he's going to be about 50 feet tall. And so they don't really keep to their timeline. He ends up being 60 feet tall. The scientists are testing possible cures on animals. None of it is working. We're introduced to a baby elephant and a camel. A very large two-humped camel.
Two-humped camel, which is
okay. And Glenn escapes. They don't know where he is because they lost track of a 50-foot tall man that's only wearing a sarong and is likely looking for his fiance.
Adjustable sarong.
Adjustable sarong. I won't need to get a new sarong until I'm 100 feet tall.
Eric has the answer to...
Yeah, he figures it out.
And they get an oversized syringe.
Oh, God, that's an awesome prop, though. That's a really cool prop. Okay, so they figure it out that it has to do with the bone marrow. What they need to do is inject a drug directly into the bone marrow and then electrically stimulate the pituitary gland in order to make Glenn shrink back to normal. And they then show that they shrunk the camel and the elephant even smaller, so they're in like tiny little gerbil cages. And thankfully the camel's tack...
The rabbit.
No. Well, the camel's tack, like the ropes that it had on it, also shrunk. Which is very, very helpful. Very helpful. Glenn is then estimated to be like 50 to 55 feet tall. And it's only a matter of time, they say it's only a matter of time before someone takes a shot at him. Because who wouldn't shoot at a 50-foot tall man in America, right? No, you would likely go...
You forgot the 10 mile... They had everybody looking for him in a 10-mile square radius and couldn't find a 50-foot tall...
In the middle of the desert. Like... well, I mean, he could like hide in a ravine or like under like an overcrop, something like. I mean that's feasible, but the fact is that they kind of start informing the public to look for the 50-foot tall top secret man that mutated because of a top secret bomb in a top secret test.
But that was after it was already out 20,000 times because. At that point, before they actually announce it to it, he's at Dune.
Oh yeah, he's in Las Vegas. We get to see some beautiful Las Vegas
and he's
landmarks.
Looking at the statue
Of the
And
dunes,
I was like, he must be looking to see if he can steal those pants. No, they're too small.
Yeah, they're too small. So he visits the dunes, Riviera, Silver Slipper.
Silver Slipper. He's 7 stories tall at the Riviera. I counted.
Yeah, but his size doesn't really stay ever.
And he looks into a bathroom scene.
Well, yeah, he sees a woman shaving her legs in a bathtub and decides to punch through the window and then giggle about it. And I guess I'm okay with that. He's clearly lost his mind at this point.
And the Silver Slipper is in Paradise, Nevada.
Well, no, I mean, that's the north part of the strip. It was actually bought by Howard Hughes, believe it or not. He thought people were taking photographs of him because it was facing like his penthouse. He thought people were photographing him from the Slipper. And so he bought the casino to shut the Slipper down so people couldn't go into the Slipper anymore. Howard Hughes, man, national treasure. That's
but then Glenn hasn't done really anything except punch the wall where the lady was.
He assaulted a woman in a bathtub.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the police officer, when he's in near the Slipper, he's not doing anything but took the Slipper. Again, he's looking to see if he could fit it.
I don't know. He's lost his mind, right? He's lost his mind. He's not really understanding. And so
the police officer shoots him with a rifle.
Okay, that's very accurate for America. Man's not really doing anything wrong. He's just big. He's bald. He's wearing a sarong. Gets shot by a cop. I'm sorry, that's a little bit of dark, like, satire there, folks. I apologize.
He's the wrong skin color.
Well, I know. But that's a little bit of dark humor. I apologize. But, yeah, the cop just shoots him. Just hauls off and shoots him. And
that gets Glenn angry.
Yeah. Glenn
he goes from
angry.
Now just curious about why there's this big shoe on top of this.
Yeah.
And there was a crown.
Yeah, he finds like a building with like a crown
on it. He puts it back. Okay. He picks up this.
Yeah, he would have broke the lights on it, picking it up.
But he's just puzzled.
And here, remember, one of the members of the public yell out, "Are you guys just going to let him destroy property like that?"
And that's when the police officer shoots.
Again, yeah. What is the punishment in America for destruction of property? Execution, right? So yeah, the cop shoots him because that makes sense. It's realistic, but it's not right.
And they've already called in the two,
like army,
the army and that stuff, and the 2 helicopters are now coming towards.
Yeah, so we have Carol in a helicopter along with a couple of these, one doctor and an army dude with a giant syringe filled with bone marrow juice.
And we end up at Hoover Dam, or as they call it.
Hoover Dam, but it's Boulder Dam.
Boulder Dam at the time.
So they land next to Glenn, and they jab him into his bone with the syringe. And he screams. He gets really upset.
He pulls it out.
And then, impales one dude with this syringe right through his chest. Because it's a giant, comically oversized syringe. All right? He then grabs Carol and starts running around like King Kong. Okay?
And
so now
she gets him to put her down.
Like, Glenn, I'm Carol.
The minute he puts her down, the army shoots.
They shoot him.
How
do they shoot him?
There's a rocket launcher one.
They specifically mention the fact that they have bazookas. And they're going to use bazookas on Glenn. And they shoot him in the face. He screams, "Oh!" and falls off the dam.
Down in the dam water.
Because what the smartest thing you can do on a dam that's holding back that much water is use high explosives. You know what Darlene, here.
Hey, I did comment about this one. Wow, there was that much water coming out of that?
Yeah, because Hoover Dam.
We've been to Hoover Dam.
The lake level's really low. They don't have to do that kind of thing anymore. What would have been the best weapon to use on Glenn in this case, since he was a danger? Now remember,
a tranquilizer.
I don't know. They don't have a
because they already shot him with the stuff, so it should be.
We need
working.
to kill Glenn. It's not about knocking him out. We need to kill Glenn because the army is now involved and cops are shooting him. How are you going to shoot him? Not with a bazooka on Hoover Dam. Like if he's off in the desert, a bazooka, fine. Sure. You roll out a Sherman with a high explosive round, put it into his gut, he's done, right? Why not use freaking like napalm or a flamethrower to try to kill him that way? Because you're on a dam that might not react very well to high explosives. Anyway, that's the end of the movie. We're griping a lot about little nitpicky things in it, but let's talk about what works.
Not the chroma key.
The chroma key's terrible, but we're going to talk about what works first. What works?
Go ahead.
What works? I actually think the woman who played Carol did a pretty good job. Her name's Kathy Downs. I think she was given a pretty terrible part. Kathy Downs was in a lot of television and old westerns. She's clearly a capable actress. I think she did fine with a very poor part that was written for her. I think I can't complain about her acting in this at all. And I think actually it likely improved the movie. Because everybody else kind of drags this movie down in a lot of ways, including Glenn Manning.
His actual name is Glenn
Langdon. And he's also a big actor, but he clearly didn't give a crap about this role. I mean, that's what it seemed.
He's probably pissed off because he had to sit in a vat of hair removal.
I don't know. I don't know why.
I would not be happy about.
Regardless, I liked Kathy Downs and her role as the fiancée, Carol. Okay? Some of the comedy in this movie actually worked. Some of it.
I like the truck driver.
Yeah, the truck driver not believing the MP telling the truth. That was cute. Like there's little 30-second spots in this movie that I'm like, there's a little bit of genius in this. I'm okay, maybe Bird Eye Gordon, I can't really label genius to it. But there are little 30-second portions of this movie where you laughed, or you thought it was an interesting shot, or you're baffled in a happy way, not like an angry way of operational security, which does not exist in this movie. Other than that, I can't say anything worked. There's lots of things that were okay, like not good, not bad. But there's a lot of stuff that's bad.
Hey, you got to see the Hoover Dam with water coming out of it.
Yeah. Do you have anything else that works?
Not really. I have a lot of things that don't work.
I know you do, but we're trying to do the positive and the negative.
And what can
what's one good thing you can say about this? Even if it didn't work,
I like the truck driver.
The truck driver works. The water from the dam.
And I wonder, because I was looking at that, and it first was done by a different. It was going to be a different Roger Corman, who got a writer.
And then it turned into
then the writer quit.
Oh, okay. So yeah, then it
that
became
was a comedian writer.
Sure.
And I wonder if the small little comedy things were part of the other person.
Okay. So let's talk about the things that don't work. We've already talked about how the science in this movie is awful. At least they know that plutonium does work in a nuclear weapon. I'll give them that. The heart is not a single-celled organ, nor does it act like a single-celled organ. Every time they pretty much open their mouths and try to say something scientific,
They did get that the bone marrow does create the blood and all that.
Well, a lot of white blood cells. Yeah, there's lots of damage to bone marrow in a nuclear blast. I mean, radiation causes damage to bone marrow, and that's a big problem, right? I don't think a lot of the acting. I think some of the people in this movie with their acting actually falls into the category of it doesn't work. I think the largest example of that is Glenn Langdon as Colonel Glenn Manning. He is the lead, and we really don't see him as a normal person enough to get
what he's supposed to be.
Sympathy for him.
Yeah.
Because as soon as this accident happens, we do feel a little bit of sympathy for any human being that is under these conditions, but he kind of acts like a jerk all the time. And he's not trying to seem like he's repentant about it or going like, I'm really sorry, I don't know why I acted that way. I understand you're all doing, what you can to help me, or, whatever. He's not doing anything like that. It's just this nastiness or sarcasm or dark humor, and he's yelling at people or beating his leg or thumping the top of the circus tent that he's living underneath, or laughing about how his sarong expands. Like, it just doesn't really work.
His mattress must expand too.
Yeah, I know.
I really got to laugh because
The special effects don't work. All the chroma key in this movie is just, it's really bad. Like, even for 1950s movies, it's really bad. And this is what I'm saying about the budget. This budget was $800,000 at the time.
848,000.
That's insane. I don't know where that money went. That's insane.
Maybe it was one of those.
This honestly looks more like $100,000 movie at the most. At the most, if not even less. I honestly don't know where it went. Are you really filming on location in Las Vegas? No, of course you're not. You have some stock still images of Vegas casinos. Okay, there's stock still images of Hoover Dam, well, Boulder Dam at the time, right? There's stock still images that you use for most things in this movie, and then there's stock footage of special effects of like the nuclear blast, things like that. Okay, that model shot of the plane landing crashing in air quotes, that's not $800,000. Did Bird Eye Gordon take like a huge paycheck from this just to do?
It had to be.
I don't know, man.
And he hired Mark, whatever his
Mark
name,
Hanna? As the other writer.
As the writer. After.
So he was a director, producer, and writer on this, and technical special effects. Like, supposedly he actually did the chroma key for this, and he was awful. Clearly, he didn't know what the hell he was doing. You should have put powder on Glenn Manning's bald head at the very least to try to tone down the glare from the chroma key screen. Like, half his head disappears. And I pointed it out to you, and you're like, "What? I didn't notice that." And I rewound the movie a little bit. And I go, "Darlene, look at the top of his head." I'm like, "Oh my god, that's really weird." It would have easily been solved with just a little bit of powder. Like, he clearly didn't know what he was doing. So I don't want to belabor the negatives of this movie.
Maybe they bought a lot of hair removal.
Yeah, they spent all of their money on Nair. I don't want to belabor the negativity that we have for this movie because, believe it or not, I actually laughed a lot through this movie, but that's mainly because it's so dumb that it does make you laugh at times. What can the modern filmmaker take away from this movie?
What would you say?
What would I say? I would say, if you're the director or producer, okay, if you're the producer, hire people for jobs that they can do, and don't hire yourself in order to get a larger paycheck. Because you need to have a creative team behind you for a movie in order to check yourself, in order to make a better film. Because if you have a vision, it's okay to have a vision.
And you got to have people that would check you too, because Lucas Films had the problem of that one.
Well, if putting checks on George Lucas helped the original trilogy, and then when he has total creative control, you get the prequels, which are arguably better than the newer movies, but they're still bloated messes of special effects and visual static. Making a movie is a team effort. And whenever you have these writer, producer, director...
These know-it-alls.
Yeah, and then this guy's like writer, director, producer, special effects guy. Like, come on, man. This is a sign for disaster. So what I said at Famous Monster Pizza when we were watching the second movie, this movie sequel, and I was joking, and it made the 6-year-old woman spit Coke out of her nose because she laughed. She thought it was really funny. I said, Tarkovsky, amazing director, right? Kubrick, amazing director. Bird Eye Gordon, cinematic mastermind. And she laughed because we were all watching this second freaking amazing Colossal Man movie, and it's clearly incompetent. Now, we will watch Amazing Colossal Man for the next movie, too, because we already know War of the Colossal Beast uses stock footage of this movie to pad itself out. But do we recommend this original Amazing Colossal Man?
I don't.
You don't. I don't either. I recommend the MST3K version of it, which is really funny. But this movie's kind of painful to watch in a lot of ways, just as itself. I can still laugh at it because, in general, I am a fan of kind of cruddy movies that I can laugh at, and it does have that. I mean, this is not a 1 out of 10 movie. This is not. No. This is more like a 3 out of 10 movie. There are charming moments, like I said. Kathy Downs actually, I think, does a pretty good job in it. But it's hard to find anything else positive.
I think that his snottiness was supposed to be humorous, but it didn't come out that way.
No, it came out as bitter. And so I have to assume, without doing all the research into the background making of this movie, I have to assume that Glenn Lagnan just absolutely despised being there, because none of it came across as him enjoying himself or putting himself into the role. The only thing where it really felt like him doing anything real was that flashback to the barbecue, like the picnic out.
And when he was talking to the sergeant that delivered him the meat.
Yeah.
Because we're debating on what one it was. Some of that stuff sounded like it was written to be said sarcastically, but it didn't come off as sarcastic.
It came off as just nasty or mean.
It just came off as mean.
I mean, he did have the line they call this living, and that is kind of funny. It is kind of funny.
But it wasn't given off that way.
No, it didn't.
Because he throws down the paper.
And starts cackling.
And you don't even see it being thrown down either.
He's cackling, and the guy runs away scared because Manning is clearly acting like a madman. And it would have been funny if Glenn actually acted like it was funny, rather than he hated saying it or he hated himself,
or that he was mad,
or that he was mad and
insane,
or the guy that brought him the food actually try to laugh along with him to try to show, hey, camaraderie. Hey, buddy, why not make that guy that delivered the food to him one of the guys that was in the trench? And Manning remembers him. He's like, that's his friend. And that would have been hey, they call this living. And the guy has a comeback to him that is clearly two friends talking. That would have made a much better scene. Or
that he was somebody that he took when I was in Korea, then he knew as a sergeant, and he goes, something there. But we don't even get Colonel Manning, Lieutenant Colonel Manning's personality to begin with. Yeah,
it's very difficult to. He's a cipher, really, right? So yeah, we don't recommend this movie, but it's not like a never ever watch this, Rocket Attack USA or Invasion USA, which I still despise. Those are the two movies I despise. I'd much rather watch Creeping Terror or Robot Monster compared to those. There's at least a little bit of charm in Robot Monster and Creeping Terror. I can actually watch somebody's butt jiggling in Creeping Terror. Rocket
twice.
Rocket Attack USA.
Remember that scene was, you were out of the doggone room.
This is better than those movies by far. Yeah. But so we'll leave it there, folks. Now next time we will watch War of the Colossal Beast, which is the sequel to this movie. And I'm Aaron.
Oh, I'm Darlene. Good evening.
And keep watching the skies.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shield yourselves and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.